Hello and welcome to Joy in Our Town. I'm your host, Vanessa Rose. So happy that you decided to tune in and join us for another great edition. Today we are going to be speaking about civic affairs, and we are joined today by Angie Rodgers, who is the president and CEO of Association of Arizona Food Banks. Thank you for joining us today,
Thanks
Angie.
for having me, Vanessa.
So great to have you, and I know that your organization does a lot of great work to help people here in the state. And so before we get started in the program, if you wouldn't mind telling the audience a little about yourself and your organization.
Absolutely. Well, I've only been the president and CEO of the association for about a year now, but it's been a very exciting year to learn about what we do and what we do on behalf of our members. We represent 5 large food banks in the state. Yuma Community Food Bank out in Yuma, the Tucson Community Food Bank, and the Community Food Bank of Southern Arizona in Tucson, Desert Mission Food Bank up at the John C. Lincoln Hospital, St. Mary's Food Bank right here in Phoenix, and United Food Bank in Mesa. Okay. So we do a lot of work to help move food between food banks so that we can ensure that we get enough food that grows in the southern part of our state up to the northern part of our state, as well as help our food banks to coordinate any logistical or other operations that they might have.
So you cover the whole state then, basically?
We are an entire statewide organization, yes.
That is wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, I know that even here at our station, we were given a pamphlet from you to hand out to people that are in need of food and assistance. And so you're obviously doing great things here. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
For taking your time to be here. And for you watching at home, today we are speaking about civic affairs, and our first issue is hunger in Arizona. This is something that probably nobody really wants to talk about if they don't experience that on a first-hand basis. It's something that's also a lot of people probably don't realize if they're not around it. But can you give us an overview of what hunger and poverty looks like here in our very own state?
Yeah, I think, like you said, it's kind of hard if it doesn't touch you on a day-to-day basis. You probably do know somebody that it touches, though, just based on the statistics that we have. 1 in 5 Arizonans or 1 in 4 children struggle with poverty and food insecurity, not having access to a regular amount of food on a regular basis, whether that be related to geography and access that way or affordability. So it affects definitely our neighbors, our coworkers, our family, our friends. Pretty much everybody in the state either is food insecure or certainly knows somebody that is.
And for the viewers at home that don't know what that means, what is food insecurity?
Food insecurity looks very different than hunger. I think many of us have seen pictures and maybe ads on television about what hunger looks like in third world countries, malnourished babies and that work. Food insecurity in the United States with a wealthy country looks very different. It means you don't have regular access to affordable, nutritious food. So a child may go without breakfast. A child may then get a school meal and then come home and not have anything else the rest of the day, or maybe have access to something that would be less nutritious but certainly affordable to the family. So that's what food insecurity looks like for most children in this country.
And so you said 1 out of every 5 people in
5
Arizona.
people in Arizona and 4 children. So the food insecurity rate is much higher for children.
Goodness, that's such a sad statistic to hear that that's happening right here in our own state, in our own city. And again, something that most people probably don't even realize if they're just going about their day and have children and jobs. And so there is so much that can probably be done to help these people. What is the biggest need in, because you work directly with food banks.
We do.
What's the biggest need in food banks here in Arizona?
Well, I think we have a couple of things. As I mentioned, we have our 5 member food banks, and they distribute food to about 1,200 sites across the state. So your Boys and Girls Clubs, senior centers, soup kitchens, a variety of locations where folks can go and access emergency food. And so we hear different things from each source, kind of up the food chain and down. At the agency level, we hear difficulties in just having enough volunteers to be able to run the sites, or refrigeration capacity is always a challenge. I have a development director who always says, these frozen turkeys don't just fly in. We have to be able to maintain and distribute all the food that we do receive from generous donors across the state, whether they be growers or retail organizations or individuals like your audience.
Wonderful. And so people, are there local farms and local businesses? Do they all donate things and they help? Is this a whole community involvement?
We have statewide donors, so absolutely. They distribute fresh produce and fruits and vegetables. Wow. I didn't realize that we are one of the largest producers of lettuce in the world out in Yuma. So much of your iceberg lettuce that you eat on a regular basis comes from the great county of Yuma. And so absolutely we enjoy, right now we have onions and watermelons in our food banks because of donors right here in Arizona.
How neat. Well, that's so neat to hear that the community comes together and donates these things and helps and is involved. Volunteering, what is something that how can people get involved with volunteering? How can they find out about it?
Absolutely. They can certainly call our 1-800 number, which I know you have, and just get information about a local food bank in their community. We can search both for help as well as giving help by zip code in their community to find a food bank close to them.
And so does that go the same if there are people that are watching that don't have enough food, that don't have enough resources? How can they go about getting help, especially if they don't have access to a vehicle or access to something? How can they get help?
Absolutely. Yes, they can call our 1-800 number, and we can search by their zip code based on what the closest food pantry or feeding site is closest to them, as well as for those in your audience who are able to donate. If they want to bring donations to that local food bank, then they have the ability to do that as well.
So do you guys do food drives and stuff? If somebody had a local business, do you have boxes that you would put out? And
our food banks do, absolutely, and regularly can work with our individual food banks on individual food drives, absolutely.
Oh, how great. So tell me more about the fact that 1 in 4 children are struggling with hunger.
Well, I know there was a recent USDA report, U.S. Department of Agriculture report, that said that food insecurity is almost predominantly related to a couple of different things. Food prices obviously being one of them, but the biggest one being the economy and the unemployment rate. So we recognize that as families struggle with paying their month-to-month bills, fixed costs like rent and utilities are kind of the first things that we all think about paying. Your food budget is maybe something you skimp on or something that you stretch as far as you can. And so your food insecurity goes up, obviously, when you're trying to make those monthly payments.
And so that's why so many children are affected.
Exactly, exactly. And as you know, with the recession and the economy being what it has over the past few years, demand at our food banks has gone up. We're starting to see that level off slightly, but many of our families are still struggling with stagnant wages or low hours at work, or just really struggling to kind of meet those monthly payments.
Wow, and that again, that's very sad to hear that's happening right here. It's like you mentioned, I think that's something that a lot of people don't consider, the fact that we see what poverty looks like in third world countries, but poverty we do have it here, but it does look different, and they may not look like the commercials and the ads that we see, but there are children that are hungry that are going to school.
Absolutely.
And I know one thing we are going to discuss here coming up shortly is about school meals and how schools do have resources and the government has resources. But thank you so much for covering this with us. So it's good to know, though, that so what is the website so people can go to it to look up?
We're at www.azfoodbanks.org.
Okay, and so that's where they can find resources. There's probably somewhere, if you said how many, 1,200 places that are distributed to?
And you can go to our website and you can search yourself if you have access to the internet. You can absolutely go and search for yourself by your zip code.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Angie. That is so great to know that there are people out there helping. And if you are at home and you don't have the food or you don't have the resources to feed yourself or your family, you're not alone. Obviously, this is sadly an epidemic here in the state, and so there are resources for you to find that. So please make sure the information's been displayed periodically throughout on the bottom of the screen, so please make sure to contact them if you have any questions. Thank you so much for watching this first part of Joy in Our Town. We'll be back after this short message.
What does good planning bring to business? Real revenue. With vibrant neighborhoods, pedestrian-friendly avenues, and good public transportation, people in a well-planned community come together in ways that support the local economy. That means that stores, restaurants, and services in the area thrive. Good planning brings value to everyone in the community. Learn more at planning.org. That's planning.org. A message from the American Planning Association.
Hello and welcome back to Joy in Our Town. I'm your host, Vanessa Rose. So happy that you decided to tune in and join us for another great edition here. Unless you happen to be watching and you've still been with us, you know that we are talking today about civic affairs, and we are joined by Angie Rodgers, who is the president and CEO of Association of Arizona Food Banks. Thank you so much for staying with us, Angie.
Absolutely, thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you to hear about what your organization is doing to help the people right here in our own communities that are struggling and facing hard times. This is something that we're moving on to next, school meals. You mentioned that a lot of these kids that face food insecurity, they are only eating at school. what programs are available to feed kids first during the school year? What is out there?
All children have access to free and reduced lunch meals at school. Some schools offer breakfast, lunch, snacks, even sometimes dinner. So they might have the ability to get meals at school. Obviously, two places where kids get fed the most, school and home, right? So we're doing more this year to try and promote access to school meals, making sure that parents know that they have the ability, but also working more closely with schools. We have a great opportunity to work more directly with high poverty schools, your low-income schools that probably have a large number of students that already participate in free and reduced lunch. But we have a new option that schools can take part in where they feed every child in that school, whether that's breakfast and lunch or breakfast, lunch, and a snack, that kids would be able to go to school without stigma and get access to a nutritious meal. And we're really excited about that. It cuts down on paperwork, so schools aren't just having to worry about paper and processing, but actually feeding kids, which is, I think, an exciting thing for schools.
So this is something that if a parent has a child in school, would they have to research this and find this information themselves, or is it already available to their child there? How do they go about taking part in this?
Schools will have to be able to elect this option starting now until August 31st. So we're working directly with schools and school officials to make this available to those schools that would qualify. Again, your high poverty, low income schools. So if they choose this option and the school makes it available, they'll go ahead and then advertise that to their parents saying it's going to be available to you in this fall.
Okay, so if a child went to a school that didn't elect into that, would they still have the option to get resources?
They would still have the option to apply for the paper application for a school meal, for free and reduced lunch, and of course always kids can go and purchase lunch at school.
Yeah.
So yes, that's always, and we're also working with not just all public schools, but charter schools as well. So it could be an option available for many parents that choose other education options for their kids.
Okay, well, and especially with school choice here in Arizona, just because you go to a school where maybe it's not low income doesn't mean that your child, there could be mixed circumstances.
Absolutely.
And so that's great that they offer that so the parents deal with it and the child doesn't have to be put in that situation where they don't have food or...
Exactly, or have to stand in a special line.
Yeah.
You know, kids can sometimes be cruel to other children, and you would hate...
We all went to school at one point. Kids can be very cruel.
Right. To not have to be in the line for the free meal or for something less than what other children are receiving. So we want to make sure that kids all have access to a nutritious meal regardless of their income.
And you mentioned nutritious meal. I think that's something that's incredibly important, especially today with the amount of childhood obesity and childhood diabetes and so many issues. Are there guidelines that are now followed so that kids get a healthy, balanced meal and not just processed food or things of that nature?
Absolutely. As part of what we call childhood nutrition reauthorization a few years ago, which will also be up in 2015, there are some requirements on schools to be able to provide certain portion sizes as well as types of food to make sure that kids are eating more healthy. And we're definitely supportive of that. Part of the work that we do is advocacy, so we work with our congressmen and women as well as our state elected officials to make sure that those schools are meeting those requirements and parents understand that when they send their kids to school to get a meal, it is a healthy, nutritious meal.
Is it the same with the food banks here in Arizona? Are there options, because I know a lot of times there was canned drives and things like that. Are there ways to do they get nutritious food? Do they get vegetables and produce and things like that so they can have a more healthy, balanced diet?
Absolutely. Actually, through the association, we provide what's called the Arizona Statewide Gleaning Project. We work with local growers and donors to be able to pull food right out of the ground and move it into our food banks. Last year, we moved about 30 million pounds of food, which is about 25 million meals, if you equate pounds to meals, throughout our food banks. So again, lettuce, onions, vegetables, fruits, that are grown right here in Arizona. So we do our best to try and provide as nutritious as possible. That doesn't mean we don't still get some candies and some cakes, But,
well, and everything's okay in moderation.
in moderation,
Yeah.
that's right. And in fact, we did have a client come to our food bank one time, and she got her meal, and she was very excited to get her food box, and it was helping. And as she was walking out, they said, would you like to take a cake? And she said, you know, normally I would say no, but it's my daughter's birthday, and she didn't have a birthday cake this year. And so we recognize that there are all those special occasions
Yes.
that all of us celebrate, and we want to make sure that everyone has that opportunity too.
Oh, that's wonderful. What a neat story.
Yeah.
So she got to be blessed
That's
and
right.
have a great experience. That's wonderful. Well, as far as during the summertime, what options are there? They're obviously not in school. They're obviously not, they have a lot more free time or at home, and Lord knows kids and teenagers can eat like nobody else.
That's right.
So as you know, they say they eat you out of house and home. What's available to feed children during the summer?
Well, some schools are also summer feeding sites. So many of the schools are open year-round to be able to have children of all ages, even if they don't attend that school, come and get a free meal at certain locations. It's also at Boys and Girls Clubs, apartment complexes, rec centers, some libraries. You can go to www.azsummerfood.gov, and it can give you a list of where summer feeding sites are. So there are some communities. What we will be working on is making sure that families know about these sites, as well as an improved process for making school meals kind of a seamless process, so that if you're getting a school meal, you would also be able to get a summer meal, so that kids get fed year-round. We recognize that feeding is not an inoculation. You don't get it one time and then all of a sudden you're cured from hunger. You want to make sure that you're feeding kids every day healthy meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner, so that they can grow and develop as healthy, productive adults.
Well, and I know that there's endless studies that show children that eat breakfast are more productive in school and more productive in life, and just do better overall and create healthy habits as well.
Exactly. Their test scores go up, their behavior in the classroom is improved. There are plenty of studies that say that hungry kids obviously are better students and better workers.
Yes, no, absolutely. And so, why do you feel personally that feeding children is so important then?
Well, as we talked on the break, I have 4 young children, 10, 7, and a set of twins that are 4. And when I think about them not having access to nutritious meals, it breaks my heart. They really, I was part of a group called the SNAP Challenge, where you try and eat meals for a week on a SNAP diet, recognizing that food stamps may not always be able to cover your monthly nutrition needs. And when I purchased my food, my son looked in the cart and he said, "Mom, that's not very much food. Are you going to be okay?" And I said, "Well, I'll be fine, buddy, but this is what some people really have to struggle and manage their budget based on their food needs." And so I want to make sure that all children obviously have the same benefits that my own children do.
That's wonderful, because I know that I haven't had children yet, and I can't even imagine them not having the benefit of eating or the benefit of having a meal. And so that's so neat that you're able to do that. And so this is something, have you found that parents will sometimes feel a sense of shame or not want to ask or not want to say that they're not able to provide? And how can you encourage people to get over that stigma and to understand that there are resources so they can get help?
Right. Yes, we'd see a number of mothers in particular stand in our food bank lines and say, I'm a little embarrassed to be here, but my circumstances, cause for me to need to feed my children. And so we see that. We also see mothers that skip meals or limit their portions to make sure that their children have enough to eat. So we want to do a better job of promoting programs like SNAP, like the food stamp program, like WIC, that provides healthy, nutritious choices. And then obviously being able to supplement it with food banks is one way to go about it. But we know that food banks can't be the end-all, be-all, that we all need to work together to solve food insecurity in this country.
So food stamps, is that something that correlates with a program like this that feeds children? Is that something, if they're on food stamps, are they automatically entered in this program, or are they able to still enter this program? How does that work together?
Meals? Yes, absolutely. The way that they qualify schools is that based on their SNAP participation. So if they have a large number of families that are already receiving SNAP, then that school is more likely to be eligible to be able to feed all those children. So absolutely. And we recognize, again, it's all in partnership. If you have a SNAP healthy SNAP program, you have healthy WIC programs, healthy school meals programs, a food bank that can be able to kind of fill in the gaps, whether you're between jobs or maybe not working quite enough hours, then we all have to kind of network together to make sure that you get healthy meals every day.
And what is WIC?
Women, Infants, and Children. It provides supplemental nutritious needs, milk, dairy, cheese, eggs, protein, different kinds of foods like that for children and pregnant women, children 0 to 5. So families can be able to pay for formula as well as meeting the nutritious needs of infants.
Okay, so is that something that's accessible through your website or through a government website or a Google search?
You can find it also at Arizona Department of Health Services. They administer the program, azdhs.gov, or you can always visit our website as well.
Okay, so those are resources that are available to people. As far as food stamps, if there is somebody out there that, I know that you're not involved with the organization that does it, but they can.
Absolutely.
How do they go about finding out how to get on food stamps? And what are there basic qualifications? How does that work?
There are. It's based on a poverty level. So depending upon your family size and how much you make, that would qualify you. You have to provide proof of income. And they can visit our website and get more information on SNAP eligibility, as well as at the Department of Economic Security, which administers the program, azdhes.gov.
Okay.
So absolutely. And in Arizona, you can go into a local office or you can apply online. And again, you can get that information on our website to be able to apply and submit your information, and then they make a determination, and then you receive benefits. The average benefit in Arizona right now is about $115 per month per individual. So it's not a significant amount. Usually when we talk to our clients at food banks, it usually helps a family pay for food for about 2.5 to 3 weeks. So food banks typically then are kind of helping fill in that last week that families need to make it. So
I suppose that's, so that you were mentioning there's a challenge that you did, that you tried to live a week on what they would have to live on.
$29. Yes.
Wow.
So that's about the average weekly benefit, and you have to make choices obviously on what you eat based on $29. And it was really eye-opening to me to look at what I spend on food, how conscientious I had to be about food prices, and just being able to limit my food intake daily, almost hourly, to make sure that I was able to stretch it for an entire week.
Wow, and see, that's difficult because a lot of times the higher nutritious foods and the healthier foods are more expensive.
Absolutely. You find you can buy less produce, certainly less lean cuts of meat. You're eating more processed foods because you're trying to stretch your budget.
Wow, and so then again, that plays into the correlation where our impoverished people look different than they do in other countries because they can buy the more processed food and the higher sugar and higher carbohydrates. So it seems like such a catch-22. It's not necessarily a win-win situation for anyone.
It's tough, and I think sometimes folks look at obesity or being overweight and not being able to equate that with food insecurity, but they are actually correlated because they're both forms of malnutrition.
Wow.
If all you're able to eat is chips 3 times a day, of course you're going to have nutrition problems.
Wow, how interesting. Well, you know, this is so much great information. You gave, there was a few websites you gave, if you wouldn't mind giving those again for our viewers.
I'll start with ours because you can always go to ours and get all this information. It's www.azfoodbanks.org. And definitely go there. You can get information about SNAP and WIC from our website. And then the second one is for summer meals at www.azsummerfood.gov.
Okay, wonderful. So families can go there if they need food for the summer for their children.
Right, if the kids are looking for a meal this summer.
Wonderful. Well, that is just all such great information. Thank you so much, Angie, for everything you're doing here in our community and what your organization is doing. And I know that you guys are always looking for volunteers.
We are.
So if you have idle time and you need something to do, then I know that that's a great cause. You're helping feed our community and taking care of our neighbors. So thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much at home for watching. The information has been displayed periodically at the bottom of the screen, so please feel free to contact them. And the website's been given out several times. I've looked at the website. There's all kinds of great resources, whether you're the one that needs food or whether you know somebody that needs food or whether you're willing to volunteer or give food or do something of that nature or a local business, then please feel free to contact them. Thank you so much for watching Joy in Our Town. Go out and have a blessed day, and we'll see you here next week.
This program has been sponsored by the Trinity Broadcasting Network and is made possible by your telethon dollars. Your continual support can keep Joy in Our Town coming to your home every week. Write to Joy in Our Town, Post Office Box A, Santa Ana, California, 92711.